One.
Cool,
Hey
cool.
guys, this is the DeFi enthusiast here. This time I'm going to try to show my face. I hope in the processing it doesn't hide it again like last time there was an error. But today I'm so glad to have Kenzo Trabing from Morpher with me, and he's been kind enough to take out some time out of his busy schedule to talk to me about what's been up with Morpher. Man, welcome, my friend. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to be here. Glad we had a chance to talk, throughout Telegram and stuff, and really excited to continue the conversation here.
Absolutely, man. Likewise. So tell me, man, what was your crypto journey like? How did you get into blockchain? And obviously, what was the philosophy of creating Morphware exactly?
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Well, I have a little bit of an interesting journey, to be quite honest. In 2015, so back in 2015, one of my best friends was mining ETH, or he was mining Litecoin, and I think he may have been mining ETH, but I'm not 100% sure. He ended up mining ETH, but he was mining Litecoin at the time, and I thought it was totally stupid. I was like, dude, I was like a total dumbass, by the way. I probably still am, but he was like, you know what, dude, this crypto stuff, like, let me explain how economics works, da 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 da. I'm totally kicking myself for not mining Litecoin back then, by the way.
Likewise.
In hindsight, it's like hindsight's 2020. But I was just like, I'm a little bit of a person that subscribes to that idea that I think Mark Andreessen said. He was like, you should have strong opinions held weakly. So the general idea is like that I'm willing to be wrong. I'm always willing to be wrong. So, and my friend's super duper smart, this guy Taka. So I was like, you know what? Like, let me like go back to the drawing board here a tiny bit and like see what this thing is about. And then I got really into like Bitcoin and like Ethereum and like smart contract development. And then interestingly enough, I took a little bit of a break from all that. When I actually ended up working in India as like an instructor, opening up a machine learning bootcamp there on behalf of a fintech focused coding bootcamp in Manhattan called Byte. And it was a really rewarding experience. But something I learned there was like how much people liked Ether. And this was right after demonetization. This was like the spring after demonetization. So it was really hard to get cash in the country, which was like a really interesting problem that I wasn't really like familiar with before that. So, some of my smartest students, one in particular that I remember today, he was really enthusiastic about ETH, and he had quite a bit. And I was really surprised to learn that because this guy went to the London School of Economics and he was extremely well educated in finance. And I remember that really having a profound impact on me. So when I went back to the States, my boss was kind of like, hey, because I was an instructor, he was like, hey, you got to get really ramped up on this blockchain stuff so you can teach it to like smart people at the university level. And then I ended up doing that a bit at a couple of universities in the US. And that was a really rewarding experience because you learn a lot by teaching. And by then I basically, I think at a certain point with teaching, so I heard this phrase once, and it's a really interesting phrase about teaching, is that there's only so much room in your heart, like basically like as an instructor or a teacher or whatever. And basically eventually you want to go out and do things yourself and like stop telling other people's stories. So I tried to start my own thing. And this was back in 2018. And I had a great co-founder. I feel like we really like attacked this thing hard, but in the end, like basically this company FPGA Co didn't end up working out. We had one client that was like a hedge fund in New York, but we were basically trying to accelerate machine learning workloads in like a really centralized and Web 2 way. So basically we were kind of like trying to create like a miniature AWS type data center that revolved around like reprogrammable fabrics at the chip level, or at the circuit level rather. And basically, and I learned a lot about entrepreneurship in that experience. And I learned a lot from my co-founder who kind of handled the business side of things. This guy's absolutely awesome person to learn from. So after that, I started actually working as a data scientist in a market making operation in the crypto space for a venture studio. I learned a lot there as well. Had a really great experience. But while I was doing my research, I kind of started to think about like deeply about all the projects that we were investing in. you know, like, so we would take positions in different things, and I'd go like, wow, like, and then there's, don't get me wrong, there's a ton of cool stuff going on in the crypto space. But as I was doing like a lot of my kind of like research, I started to think like, man, like it's really interesting. I wonder, like, anyway, I started to think about like basically all these different projects, and eventually, like when I stopped working basically as a trader, I started to think critically about like what I do next, and kind of like and I started to rethink about like, you know, accelerating machine learning workloads and how that could occur in like a decentralized capacity. What's really interesting with regards to like the story of Morphware is I realized that we couldn't, you know, after thinking about this, I gave my, so when I started Morphware, I didn't want the same experience as like FPGA Co, which, you know, kind of just like to speak really acervically about it or whatever, is like kind of ended in failure, right? I mean, with
Right.
regards to like, I feel like startup success is very binary in the sense that from an equity perspective, you either go public or you get acquired or you fail, right? So, but what was interesting, so basically what I wanted to do when I started when I started Morphware in May of 2021, I gave myself about a month. I was like, you know what? I'm going to work on this for a month. If it doesn't work out, if I can't figure out how to do it, just like even theoretically, and kind of like round out some of these problems that I can go into with regards to like kind of like what's innovative about what we're doing. I was like, if I can do it in a month, then I'm just gonna go look for another job, right? Just like hit lead code, like these coding interview websites, study my programming algorithms, and try to get a job at a thing type company. Um, and like surprisingly enough, basically, basically around June, I can't remember the exact timeline, but it's on GitHub. I was like, you know, I thought I think I can make this work. You know, with regards to I think I'd written the smart contracts. I tested them a bunch of times with Truffle, so like it was a lot of manual stuff, but I didn't mind it because it was really exciting to kind of do something innovative and build something, which I hadn't done in a while. And and you know, and then I reached out to my old boss actually. This guy Billy, great guy. And I was like, and basically I totally suck at JavaScript, but it's the language that we kind of needed, for lack of a better phrase. I mean, you could argue like, well, we could use Rust or some other language, but I feel like JavaScript is pretty flexible, but I really suck at it. And I never really took the time to learn JavaScript really well, because when I learned JavaScript, it was like ES3. So now we're in like ES7, like this version that's like, like pretty far removed from what you could do like back in the early 2000s or whatever, when it was primarily like this thing that people used instead of Flash.
Yeah,
Um,
I tried you know, getting my, you know, hands dirty with trying to learn that, but you know, at that time, you know, technology wasn't, you know, as sophisticated as it is now, and
mm,
finding people to, you know, teach you that stuff was a bit of a challenge. So I can completely relate to what you're saying, Matt.
yeah, so it's interestingly enough, yeah, exactly. So just to piggyback on what you're saying, what I did was I first reached out to Billy and I was like, hey, like, can can you kind of tutor me and teach me JavaScript so I can and you know, work on this thing? And eventually he was like, you know, kind of like, what are you working on? You know, and then he got involved with the project, and then he brought in some people, and it was really great. Um, and interesting enough, as the kind of evolved, what was really interesting was this guy that I met on a BitTorrent forum, Darshan, who's now our lead developer. He took a real leadership role in the project and really kind of ran with kind of like the foundation, code wise, that like Billy set, and he's really like taking it to like the next level. So Darshan's a Microsoft engineer, really talented guy who's a, you know, core contributor to the project. And another guy is Hassan Malik, who's like a MetaMask engineer. He's helped a lot on the smart contract front. So we've got this great team that I'm excited to work with. We've got a couple cool irons in the fire with regards to what we're doing on the hardware front, to become a cash flowing business. So basically, Morphware, what's really exciting about Morphware, and just to take a step back real quick about what it does, is we basically crowdsource computing capacity from gaming rigs to train machine learning workloads. But the thing is, when there aren't enough jobs in the network, say for a particular card or just architecture, basically Morpher automatically mines some crypto, whatever crypto you want. So it could be ETH, Zcash, Firo, Ravencoin, like whatever's available on like 2 miners or something. We don't have a mining pool right now. So basically we just kind of like automatically offload that to like a mining pool and people can choose their mining algorithm. But what's exciting there is basically like your computer's always making money. And right now, basically we're about 20% cheaper than Amazon and Amazon Web Services like EC2 and SageMaker. And we're 2 to 3 times more profitable than mining ETH. So there's a nice like little plan there to kind of chart it out. And we kind of make a market for computing resources. So it's a really exciting value proposition. And what's exciting about like this most recent development with regards to this Harmony partnership that we just did. We're part of this Harmony Project X initiative. They gave us basically $200,000, or actually they purchased $200,000 worth of tokens to go ahead and help us build out our data, to give us the cash that we need to build out this data center that we're doing basically in South America, which is really exciting because there's like a 3.5 cent kilowatt hour rate there. And then we'll become a cash flowing business. And the entire idea there is like becoming a cash flowing business for us is really exciting because we want to not have to like sell tokens from the treasury, or AKA like dump tokens onto the community, to be really like clinical about it. Or to take that to its radical conclusion. Like we don't want to have to do that in order to like raise revenues, right? So like we're really community focused. We haven't taken any VC money yet. And it's kind of like how we want to do things. I think, it's a really value proposition. As the company grows, I think we'll probably work with different investment groups with regards to or funds or whatever on the LP front. But I'm really excited about like growing this organically.
Wow, that's amazing, man. So it seems to me it's like a grassroots, it's like a really grassroots movement. It's really fair the way you guys are launching everything, the way you guys are working towards it. And would it be fair to say that there's a proof of work aspect in this, or is it all POS, proof of stake?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So basically, like when we were mining, so Morpher the token is 100% pre-mined. The treasury has the majority of the tokens. But with regards to proof of work, the way that comes in is like the mining, where we keep like GPU utilization really high. We rely on like proof of work algorithms there for those calculations.
Okay, and talk to me a bit more about this. Constantly, you said that you guys are constantly getting other cryptos, right? And so Morphware is basically, is it behaving like a node? Can we kind of say that, or like is it like also like a passive income making opportunity for people that are going to get into this project?
Yeah,
how does this work? If you can elaborate on that, please.
It's a really good question. So basically, the way it works is basically, so what we have in place is a sealed bid second price auction. So a really good example of this is like, say, like in municipal level government contracting. Like if there's a road that needs to be built in a particular municipality, what's really interesting about the way that occurs is usually the town will go out and they'll be like, they'll try to basically get 5 bids to keep it competitive and like transparent and stuff. And like the point is, what's really interesting there is in a second price, just real quick, in a second price auction or in that particular aspect of the auction, what's interesting is, say like, long story short, well, no, I'll just take this scenario a little further. So what's interesting here is like in this particular scenario of like work to be done on a particular road, if 5 contractors bid, the highest bidder or the lowest bidder, kind of like depending on how you look at it, because the town will usually want to go with like the lowest bid. Like a contractor will come in and say, I can do it for $100, and another one may come in and say, I can do it for 200 and 300, 400. I know that these numbers are unrealistic with regards to like the cost of road, but the point is just for the sake of like keeping the numbers round and the scenario approachable. If we were to go like 100 through 500 with regards to the bid amounts, and the town wanted to go with the lowest bid, what's interesting is like that the second bid, the second highest or lowest bid, like depending on how you look at it, is what like the contract will actually come in at. So like the point is, the reason that occurs at all is because basically it prevents people from overstating their capacity in like an algorithmic way. There's a lot of like interesting like algorithmic game theory here at work, but with regards to like a second price auction, what's really interesting is like, or like say like the flip scenario where you have a descending set of bids, like for a piece of art, if there's some like fantastic piece of art that costs like $1 million and someone bids $2 million and there's only two bidders, the highest bidder will actually only pay $1 million. And it's if the highest bidder's bid was $2 million, they will only pay $1 million in a second priced auction. So basically, and the utility there is basically again that people won't overstate their capacity for a variety of reasons and like algorithmic game theory. And it keeps basically people honest. And that's why like municipal level governments and stuff, that's why they use second price auctions and like bids to like go out when they're doing an RFP process or a request for proposal process for anyone listening that's not familiar with that. And what we do that's really exciting with regards to Morphware is we have a second price auction within our set of smart contracts. So we have each node is based, so we have this decentralized set of nodes, and say like there's two bidders, like one may have a stronger GPU than the other. So basically both, what happens is in the beginning of the training process, if you will, just to kind of really zoom out, the stronger GPU or both GPUs or both nodes will rather look internally and look at their GPUs, and they will do what's called a core count. And they will be like, okay, whose GPU is basically, not basically whose GPU is stronger, but each will be like, I have 4,000 cores. And the other one might go, I have 2,000 cores, right? And then they do some calculation and then they calculate their bid based on the number of cores. Those bids are sent, or rather the hat, so this is where it gets kind of confusing. This is where the sealed bid nature comes in. Then each node creates a hash. So some sort of like they've introduced some level of secrecy that's mathematically improbable to reverse engineer in a discrete amount of time. Each node creates a bid, then they create a hash from that bid, then they send the hash to a smart contract on Ethereum. And then what's really interesting is that then basically this bidding process ends, and then each one submits the inputs into that hashing function. So basically, like there's a bidding process, and then they reveal the bids. And then so it's like you can't lie, because if you change the inputs, and what we do is we reconstruct the hash in the smart contract when we check in the reveal function. There's actually a function called reveal in our Victor contract, or what we call our auction factory contract. And like long story short, because it's a factory pattern, and long story short, then we match up the hashes, or we check the hashes against one another and go, okay, is like the previously submitted hash equivalent to the hash of the presented inputs? So it's kind of clever. And that's kind of like the way that we do a sealed bid auction. And the second price nature is kind of like what I talked about before. Then what happens is the workload actually, so then this is what's kind of cool. Then a data scientist on, let's say on this side of the screen, the data scientist or the job poster goes ahead and they actually, so this is where it gets a little confusing, but they will actually seed the files to the BitTorrent network, because BitTorrent's like really fast and we love it internally. I think it's like, I love IPS too, but I think BitTorrent's really, really swell. So basically, since it's prohibitively expensive to write any file buffer to a smart contract or any sort of like blockchain type surface mechanism, or any mechanism at all in blockchain, if you will, what's really interesting is that we just seed the files onto the BitTorrent network. And then we basically take the hash pointers, or basically like what you could say, not really hash pointers, but what BitTorrent's magnet links. And they're these kind of like hash-like strings. We take the magnet links, which point to the files on the BitTorrent network, and we write those to the smart contract. And that's in our, I think that's in our Shane. So this is all on GitHub. It's all in our smart contracts. It's actually on Ethereum mainnet if you want to read it on Etherscan. But I think this is in share untrained model and data and training data set. Anyway, the point is we only out of 3 files that we would ever share from the data scientist perspective, we only share 2 of them initially. And that's so the worker nodes can't cheat. And so basically, if you're familiar with the model training process, or if anyone here listening is unfamiliar rather, What's interesting, or particularly interesting about what we do, is that we hide the training, the unseen data, if you will, or the testing data set from the model trainer. So basically, the model trainer doesn't know what the testing data set will look like, and so it can't go ahead and cheat. So basically, what the data scientist node does, and this is all automatic, by the way, the bidding process is automatic, the sharing of the files is automatic. As soon as someone clicks submit, and if it's all done, like, so it's all automatic, if you will. So what's really exciting here is then basically what happens is the files, the magnet links are written here. That creates an event, which is published on the Ethereum blockchain. That event is basically kind of caught, if you will, by the worker node that's listening, that won the contract. So we have a filter that runs and says, hey, is this event about me? Then they'll digest the message. They digest that message, they actually train the model. And then just right now with regards to how it works in its MVP-like state, is we track standard out to go ahead, and standard out is where we print accuracy constantly. So assuming that the model reached some threshold level of accuracy, which is predefined in the contract, didn't really talk about that, but long story short, there's a threshold level of accuracy that the data defines. Then basically out of that comes an H5 file. So an H5 file is kind of like it's kind of language agnostic byte stream that you can load into any programming language really. And what's really cool is like, it's just the architecture, and it's basically the organized weights. It's like, hey, this is what the neural net looks like, and this is what the weights are in each particular neuron, if you will, and the activation functions there within. Then basically what happens is that H5 file is seeded onto BitTorrent by, once that model is trained, it's seeded onto BitTorrent by the worker node. Same exact thing happens. We link that points to that H5 file, send it back to the smart contract. That smart contract then, interestingly enough, creates a there's like a nuclear siren, there's like a nuclear alarm. Anyway, sorry, got distracted by that. It's like, I think it's a test. I'm pretty sure it's a test. I hope it's a test. But there's a if you hear something in the background, that's what that is.
Yeah,
Sorry about that. That definitely like made me lose my train of thought.
no
But real
problem.
quick, so then what happens is after the worker node seeds that H5 file, writes the magnet link to that smart contract. Basically what happens is that H5 file is basically processed by a third actor or third set of actors. Basically, like we have this way of selecting like pseudo, it's totally pseudo random. It's not random at all. Like it's not truly random. But we basically try to prevent cheating, basically have a worker node and a validator node collude. But basically what we do is then we have basically like a validator node digest that H5 file and test it on the test data set. So basically once that H5 file is posted, then the testing data set is posted. And then the validator node comes in, tests that model on the testing data, and then basically if it's okay, then they approve the job. And then once the job is approved, all actors are paid out. So there's a reason that the data scientist is paid from their own funds, but they're paid like a small amount of what they post because of the reverse bidding, how we construct the reverse bidding process, if you will, or the reverse nature of the auction of the workload. But that's basically how it works. I really like long-winded. We're actually working on a Git book right now. So basically like some really slick documentation that we'll have up in a month. Our deadline for that is like April 20th. So basically, you can come back and check it out then. But yeah, it's really exciting stuff. And we'll be documenting all of this, like how to get a work node up and running, how to get a validator node up and running. So if a node requires a GPU, a validator node could be something as weak as a Raspberry Pi. In Q4, that'll be a cell phone, at least like an Android device. So our whole thing will basically be, or one of our kind of dreams, if you will, is that people will be able to earn crypto on their cell phone without having to do anything. Like it'll be completely automatic, just for validating workloads. But yeah, that's basically how the system works.
Very, very interesting. Thank you so much for that detailed explanation. I appreciate it. So like in simple terms, you're using both the concepts of POW as in proof of work and also some concepts from proof of stake as well, right? If I'm not mistaken, am I correct on this?
So what's interesting is I like to think about it as like we're doing kind of like Like, you know how, so I think I love, so just quick, I love Bitcoin. I love Ethereum, like as it is. I love the proof of work version. I think that proof of work is just, I think that it's fundamentally important algorithmically, and just kind of conceptually even, and just, anyway, like philosophically, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, like, what you're really doing when you're solving a mining equation, you're finding the discrete log. So what's interesting about discrete log is it's a pretty meaningless mathematical equation. I mean, if you really think about it, because what you're doing is you're doing these transactions, finding a nonce or whatever. And what's interesting is like about what we do, I think it's what's really exciting is it's the same exact mechanics of proof of work at a abstract level, but there's some meaning to it because like what's really exciting about what we're doing, to get really for a second, is we're kind of like, if someone would submit that machine learning has like anything at all to contribute to an intellect, you could say that we're like incrementally like slightly increasing like, yep.
Sorry, you got cut out there. Could you just repeat that last part a bit, please?
Yeah, so basically like, so going back to the discrete log bit real quick, like discrete logs are like pretty meaningless. Like, I mean, with regards to finding that in a mining equation. But like what we're doing that's really exciting basically is like, we're doing something kind of meaningful, you know, like basically we're kind of like, you know, if one admit that we're basically, that machine learning like at all, just kind of as a domain has anything to contribute to like, you know, human intellect, like mission, like kind of as a project, interestingly enough, and perhaps a little bit woo-wooey, is like we want to kind of slightly increase the upper bound of like the intellectual capacity of our species by harnessing all this latent computing capacity. So what I'm saying is there's some meaning there, and there's some really cool applications of machine learning, like in radiology and all this different stuff. And like the point is, you know, I think that like Morpher has the capacity to do that. So it's a little idealistic and a little out there, but it's definitely something I reflect on a lot.
Awesome, awesome. That's super cool. Well, these are all the technicals, right? But how would I like let's say, look, I kind of, I'm not the most technical guy, but I still kind of understand this because I'm in the blockchain space, right? But how would I try to convince someone like you know how people are like, well, that all sounds great. If you had to tell a layman in very simple terms what exactly Morphware does, like in like let's say 5 to 10 minutes, let's say, what would you tell them? And like because you know, for them, for most people, I think, and I think you'd agree with me here, a lot of people are in the crypto space to make money still, right? I mean, it's still that, you know, we're not at that utopia yet where, you know, this is the technology and we believe in it and all that. There's still a lot of people that are there to make money, right? So when somebody comes and says, hey man, you brought this great project to me, all right, you're saying it's great, but how would you explain it to them? You know, like what exactly Morpher does? If you can explain that in very, very layman terms, you know, that would be really cool as well. Because now we've kind of covered the technicals, but also if we can cover that in very basic terms, that could be really cool as well.
Cool. So there's the kind of 3 user personas that I think about when it comes to this. It's funny, like I've talked so much about this project and like pitched it so many times that I feel like I have this part down at least, and I don't have to do all the hand waving. If they were data scientists, I'd say the most important thing to them isn't even like the budget, it's the changing their workflows. So all I'd say to them is, hey, Morpher's got seamless Jupyter Notebook integration. So basically, when you go to AWS to their console and everything, you actually have to spin up an instance, and it takes about like 5 to 7 minutes. Morphware, you don't have to provision any resources. You can get started right away with the Jupyter Notebook that you have on hand locally on your machine. When it comes to the worker nodes, what's really interesting is it's a really simple value proposition. We just say earn crypto while you sleep, right? And what's really exciting there is like it's a little bit more efficient to like earn Morpher tokens, or it's a lot, actually 2 or 3 times more than like mining ETH, and it'll automatically mine ETH in the downtime. For validator nodes, for people that don't have GPU-enabled devices, it's a really simple value proposition too. In Q4 of this year, it'll be, hey, earn your cell phone.
Awesome.
Doing nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that explains it. So basically, it is a very, very efficient way of earning passive income, right? If I had to kind of boil it down, right?
I
That's
think
awesome.
Yeah, Peter Wang, the CEO, I think the founder also of Anaconda, the magnificent Python library and project. I think he said on Lex Friedman's podcast, I recall him saying something like, "It's every nerd's dream to build the ultimate middleware." So that's what we are. We're kind of like I think that's definitely what Morpher is. We're definitely like, we want to be like the ultimate middleware for machine learning workloads. And the really exciting thing here, by the way, with regards to machine learning, people think that like Morpher is like addressing a fearsomely esoteric problem. But not only are we surrounded by like trained models, like whether it's opening your phone or some sort of fraud detection on your bank account, da 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 da. Like there's so many like endless, self-driving cars. There's so many applications of machine learning that we're surrounded by. But what's really exciting on top of that, just real quick, is the fact that, when it comes to building the ultimate middleware, it's like we just want to like kind of get out of the way and just kind of like be right below the surface. Not necessarily at like an operating system type level, but something that still has like some level of value. And yeah, I actually kind of lost my train of thought there while I was saying it, but long story short, yeah, we really do see ourselves as kind of like the ultimate middleware. Oh, I do remember. The thing here's the deal. When it comes to like, I feel like people are just focusing on this problem now, like this chip shortage problem, which is only getting worse, right? But what's really interesting when you take a step back is like this problem's actually been around for a few years, and it's not like an original idea. David Patterson, when he won the Turing Award with his colleague John, I forget that guy's name, the chairman of Google. But like what's really interesting, or I forget what he used, but basically, you know, when this guy won the Turing Award, David Patterson at Berkeley, he was like, he gave this great, this absolutely great speech, and I watched the thing a few times. I think I watched it like 8 or 9 times now. And what's really interesting is his speech revolves around this problem, and he warns the world. He says like, "Yo, there's a chip shortage coming, and it has nothing to do with like." Like people right now are talking about like, oh, maybe like the pandemic has like exacerbated a lot of like different like supply chain problems. But like what's really interesting here is if you were to just create a graph real quick, what's really interesting is like Moore's law, which he submits, by the way, is tapering off, and I totally it's an idea that I subscribe to. Moore's law, like if it wasn't tapering off, so if things were still hunky dory in Moore's law, it's basically like that line would be like this. It would be like, okay, the number of transistors on an average integrated circuit, like a complex integrated circuit, is doubling approximately every 18 months. So like, let's just say that's still true, and it's clearly not now, right? For a variety of reasons, like data centers want to focus on like power consumption versus other things. But let's just say that's still true, right? What's really interesting is state-of-the-art machine learning models with regards to like, so let's say like demand curve. So this is the supply curve, right? The demand curve is like this because state-of-the-art machine learning models double in the computational capacity required to train them every 18 months. I'm sorry, every 3.5 months. So you have one curve that's doubling every 18 months and another curve that's doubling every 3.5 months. So I know I'm doing like the hand wavy stuff again, but the thing is like just real quick as like a quick visual, there's a growing gap. So the gap isn't like, it's not like the chaos graph where it's like it comes back in. It's just growing. Like the divide is growing, right? So what's really interesting here is the only way, this is like the secret sauce of Morpher, kind of like the impetus of Morpher, if you will. The only way to bridge the gap is by using existing computing capacity that's just latent. So the thing is, the chips are actually out there, like the gaming rigs, the GPUs, blah, blah, blah. They're all out there. The problem is someone needs to coordinate, aggregate resources together onto one network, and that network is Morphware.
So if we had to sum it down, you guys are acting as a bridge for all the data, right? Within the gaming rig ecosystem, if I'm not mistaken,
So like just to riff on that, so like I'd submit that basically so it's really interesting that you bring that up, because I'd submit that like, yeah, that's a really interesting way of looking at it. I would perhaps look at it from like the model training side, just maybe like with the data science background. I would just say that and it's two sides of the same coin. With regards to what we're both saying, I would just submit, yeah, like I mean, like I would focus more on like, so like we're kind of like trying to coordinate training of all these models, but it's definitely dependent on like the data as you described.
I see. I see. And what kind of gaming rigs are you? I mean, I think it's just for my own knowledge, because I'm actually curious about this. What kind of gaming rigs are you guys, integrating with? What type of gaming rigs have you worked with? Like, could you talk about that, please?
Yep. So right now we only have standard 280 NVIDIA RTX 280 cards. And what we're buying 150 of to build a GPU cluster is 150 3060 Ti Founders Editions cards, because they're not like the LHR, the low hash rate cards. So they can mine a lot in the off time. We'll also have some K80 cards online, which are kind of like enterprise level, but we'll be buying used ones from eBay. And those are really like approachably priced, because those kind of are low hash rate cards, but basically we'll just have like a machine learning dedicated cluster that won't mine in the off time. That'll always be like ready for model training. And then basically we'll have like this hybrid cluster that basically probably mines a lot in the off time. And then can run like particular types of machine learning workloads. We'll have 6 of those per box. So we have this whole schematic. We're actually working on like a visualization, like a graphic right now. We're ironing out some stuff on the power front, because power distribution, like making that reliable, and thinking kind of creatively about that stuff is something that we've been doing over in our dev channel, which I'll totally invite you to.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's how we're thinking about things. And the thing is, we could anything from like a 1060 card on up, we could go ahead and leverage. And then I'm not sure about how well this will work, just because I'm not that familiar with like the CUDA interface and the TensorFlow XLA, but we're planning on using PlatML, this library that helps people use like AMD cards for model libraries in Python that have like that are expecting a CUDA interface or a CUDA-like interface. So hopefully we'll be able to leverage AMD cards, but no promises there, basically.
Awesome, awesome. So there seems to be like a real use case utility with Morphware. Obviously, it's trying to solve a big problem, as we have spoken about this, and which as I'm thinking about all of this, what are your thoughts on this whole play to earn gaming concept, and the way the metaverses are being marketed and stuff? Do you feel that Morphware has a role in those things as well?
That's a really good question. So this is another place where I'm completely wrong, sadly enough. Like I used to think when I first saw the play to earn stuff, I thought it was totally stupid. I was like, you know what? And maybe I'm just a hater. I mean, like I grew up playing like Pokemon and like Final Fantasy VII. So I was like, hey man, we had these graphics like 10 years ago, or like whatever, like 12, whatever, 15 years ago or something, right? And I was like, what's so special about this stuff? But what changed my mind was DeFi Kingdoms. So there's a guy on our team that's like our DeFi analyst, if you will, and he was like, he kept talking about this thing. By the way, this guy's like always right about stuff. It's crazy. And I'm just thinking like, and I'm like thinking like this DeFi Kingdoms thing. He's telling me about this thing. And I'm like, I just don't get it. I mean, like initially, right? And then he's like, oh, well, what's cool about DeFi Kingdoms is it's an abstraction of finance. So like anything like yield farming, even just like deposits and different things like that it gamifies that experience in a really intuitive interface, right? Because like I grew up playing like Zelda, Pokemon again on like Game Boy, so like it's like those graphics are very, to me, I love them, right? But I'm just like I didn't get it. I'm like, well, like why would, like I don't get it. Like why would people play this or da 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 da. And then that kind of and then understanding DeFi Kingdoms and the innovation there with regards to how it abstracted away some of like the scarier parts of finance, if you will. Like, I mean, understanding yield. I mean, just like if you walk down on the street, most people wouldn't understand what yield is. You know, like if you just talk to people on the street anywhere. So like what's really interesting is I felt like that was a really cool application of some of this stuff. And then that kind of opened my eyes to the wider metaverse and play to earn stuff. You know, where I started taking a less critical eye to all that stuff. And I started thinking like, wait a minute, there's something going on here. I think a lot of people in that space are getting it wrong. And I think there's a lot of projects that are launching there, perhaps at too fast a rate, but there's definitely a lot of gems. I don't know what they are. But I'm now a huge fan of DeFi Kingdoms in particular, and like what they're doing there. He's a big fan of we were talking about this yesterday on the call, Tranquil Finance. So I think there's something really interesting called Defira, but I honestly, I don't know enough about the space, but I see cool things all the time. What I'd say there, which definitely is not true. Let me say this. It's not limited to play to earn games. This is true for any startup or perhaps any enterprise, regardless of size, is that it's all about execution. And what I've seen with regards to disappointment throughout a variety of communities, unfortunately, is that can be kind of, or at least maybe it's to me because maybe I was taking a critical eye to the space before, but it seems like some projects don't necessarily like, they have a poor track record of delivering. Let me just put it that way. Like whether it's like in-game assets or some of the tokenomic, the expectations created on the tokenomics and like how the teams behaved and stuff like that. So I don't want to like shade a particular project or anything like that. And I'm not familiar enough with the space to know, but I think there's a lot of promise there. But I would say that like, just from what I've seen, I would say that there's probably a disappointing rate of the amount of projects that are playing the long game. Because I was talking to another guy about this actually recently. It's funny that you brought this up. We were talking about like some of these. I'm just talking about like some of these projects very abstractly, like as kind of like as like just as a category or a sub asset class, if you will. And what I found was really interesting was we were both like, yo, like I mean, we were both saying like Bethesda, Riot Games, those are huge companies, right? So it takes a lot of engineers. Like,
can you repeat that? Which ones?
Riot Games and Bethesda. Like I think these are like Blizzard, Activision. What I'm saying is like
Right.
these game studios are huge things, and it's like I went to the Otaku talk once for the book release of Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, and this game developer was on stage, and he was talking to us about like their crunch time and like in the game development world, and these guys will like live at the office for like months on end, for like 4 or 5 months when they're releasing a game. And it's like a completely toxic culture or something because it's like the work culture of an investment bank where it's just grueling, and these guys are just living in the clothes for a week. They're grinding and da da da, and I would say that like with some of these projects, and this is probably true for, and again, this is not just true for game projects. I've just noticed it like with regards to some game projects that I've just kind of seen is like I feel like they're not like you have to work 10 times as hard as Activision or something to like compete with them or something, you know what I mean, like or Blizzard or Riot Games or whatever, what have you, Rockstar Games or whatever. I don't know if those studios are still around. I'm not really a gamer. I grew up playing video games, so I don't really play them anymore, but yeah, I think that there's I think DeFi Kingdoms is a really cool project, and Defira sounds really cool from what Matt Topping, the standard team, was telling me. I think and those are my thoughts there.
Yeah, I also found the sandbox to be really interesting as well. I mean,
Okay.
in terms of all of these, but yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you on these aspects, because as far as graphics are concerned, I mean, even with there were a few virtual worlds that I clearly remember were present like back in 2005 and 6. So I was just like, what's different? I think one of the biggest selling points for a lot of these things is the concept of ownership, right? I mean, like if you are like in a virtual world, which is not decentralized, right? Let's put it this way. You really don't own whatever you buy, right? Even in-game skins and things like that, you don't really own them. It's the game. They're the ones that own that property, and you think you own it, but you don't. But while in all of this, you do own whatever you buy. So I think that's probably the biggest selling point. And now, exactly as you said, how they execute it is a whole different story. And I think there are very few right now in the space that are doing it correctly. But yeah, I've seen DeFi Kingdoms. I found it to be really interesting as well. But that was what was. I was just curious. Would Morphware play a role in any of this stuff in the future? Like, do you have any plans for that?
One potential vector for expansion is like rendering for sure. But what we're laser focused on right now is just the machine learning space and tackling all of the algorithms. So we're like kind of like subsets of algorithms. So we have what we're focusing on right now. We just had this great guy join us, this guy Junyu Yang from LinkedIn. data scientist there. This guy's like an absolute like mega pro, way better of a data scientist than I'll ever be. This guy, he's helping us with our NLP models, with Hugging Face, those libraries, computer vision models, and now we're working on a demo for a thing that we spoke about offline, but I can't really talk about yet. But a time series analysis for finance or quant finance. So basically, really excited about those things. I'm really excited about our team. And then the thing is, like, yeah, we could go into these other things, but right now we're just laser focused on machine learning because, again, it's that space that's like really wide, right? And it's like, by the way, in this chart, it's like we're like here, like time wise, if there was like an x-axis, like, and if this was like the x-axis down here, like what I'm saying is like this started widening in like 2014. So like we're out here somewhere, just in the graph. So it's very wide now, is what I'm trying to say. And people, it's not that people don't realize it, it's just that there's a very small group of decision makers in any particular industry or even organization that are kind of intimately familiar with the problem. And these people command huge data science budgets. The compute load for like an average data scientist at an enterprise can be 2 to 3 times their salary.
Wow.
So if they're making if they're making per person. So if they're making $100,000, they may be spending $300,000 on compute per year. On previous chart, we were spending $1,000 a week on AWS. I mean, just on compute. I mean, on machine learning compute, not even like other stuff.
Right.
So we were a little startup. So yeah. Sorry.
So I mean, idealistically, you would like to take those same things from away from AWS, right, and make it more efficient, more reliable, more decentralized. Am I correct in
and the
saying
thing
that?
is, like, we don't. Yeah. So here, some pushback I've gotten here, even internally from like early team members, that was really interesting was, hey, you don't want to compete with Walmart for the price of milk. Right. So like the idea was, it was like they were kind of like, hey, you're entering a war of attrition with Amazon, which is a well-resourced and ruthless competitor. The interesting thing about like SageMaker, their product that does basically like the Web 1 version of like what we do, is that's not a profitable business for them, actually, interestingly enough. So the rumors that I've heard is that they're actually trying to sell that business. And like what's really interesting, because the thing is, like, running GPUs in a data center, like say like in like their main data centers in, I don't know, Portland, Virginia, Ohio, and around the world, these are not like these are high electricity rate environments. So like they don't make a ton of money by like trying to stay competitive. It's just one of their, from Amazon's perspective and my understanding, that product SageMaker is just something that's like basically a feature set to keep people having their data stored in an S3 bucket. It's all because their main revenue drivers are S3, EC2, and then Lambda. So basically what's interesting is Amazon, if we were going head to head with Amazon, say like in the e-commerce space, in my opinion, there'd be no doubt we'd be crushed, right? Because they're extremely well-resourced, extremely well-organized, extremely disciplined, I mean, they're like $1 trillion business now. The point is, what's interesting about this one particular product, SageMaker, is it's not really something they care about because it just doesn't really, it's something that doesn't work for them. I mean, they could pour a bunch of resources into it. It's not really that much of a profitable business, And what's interesting there is like basically that if you aggregate latent computing capacity, you're basically like what we do is you're just competing with non-competition, in the sense like that everyone knows ETH is about to move to proof of stake, right? And like the big question that like a lot of people ask, or at least in the mining space, is like, what are all these GPUs do? So like that's a conversation that we're having with like mining firms as well. That's really exciting because like there's that whole avenue of growth. But two, like again, I'd focus on, or I'd submit that basically, and I'm not familiar with like Amazon's internal, balance sheets or accounting, cash flow cycles or whatever. But I'd submit that basically just like that's what's going on there. SageMaker is basically a product that they have in-house that could be even like a little bit of a loss leader to go ahead and support this S3 behemoth, the storage behemoth inside of Amazon, where they want people, that vendor lock-in effect, you know, where it's like, hey, come here, it's like a supermarket, like you can get anything here inside of the AWS management console. And like one of those things is SageMaker. And it's like, but what they really want is the people to keep using S3, because if people keep their data there, then basically then they'll use kind of like the surrounding products in the constellation.
Awesome. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. That explains it pretty well. So with that said, let's just talk about, if we can, any interesting partnerships that you guys are working on, like anything that you can talk about by any chance? I'm pretty sure there's stuff that you probably can't talk about, but there's maybe some stuff that you could talk about as well. Would that be possible?
So what we're really excited about is Teller. The Teller's our first partnership. These guys believed in us really early on. They're like the second most popular Oracle. But what's interesting about Teller, we also use Chainlink right now and like another set of smart contracts. But what's really exciting about Teller is they do things in a completely decentralized way. So we use Chainlink just because one of our developers was more familiar with it when we were trying to spin up our token sale contract and our staking contract. We're trying to do this really quickly. One of our developers is more familiar with Chainlink, so we ended up using it. But we're using Teller and we're partnering with them because I feel like our values are a little bit more aligned with regards to decentralization. So Teller's a completely decentralized Oracle. We know their team. I actually met the founder out at East Denver. The founder is this guy Nick, extremely approachable. Their team is so chill. They've been helping us so much. Like understand the Oracle space in general. And we love working with them, and they've actually like been helping us set up like a couple custom integrations that like their engineers have like really helped our engineers out with. So I couldn't be like happier about that partnership. Teller totally rocks, and we're huge fans. Another partnership that we're really excited about is Harmony. So what's really cool about Harmony is I think it's like the sharding, and that team is just so incredibly humble. It's crazy. These guys are all like geniuses over there. They're all geniuses and really accomplished people like in their past professional lives. And they came together and they started this really ambitious project to have this sharding mechanism, this on-chain sharding thing, where basically they've got like 4 chains that kind of like interact with one another. And that interoperability basically helps them have like really high throughput transactions with really low gas fees. So we're actually probably going to migrate entirely to Harmony by the end of Q4 of this year. And, part of that partnership that's really exciting is Harmony has actually purchased like 2.5 million tokens, Morpher tokens, and those are in a 1-year lock. And there's a 25% limit on how much they can sell per month after that. They basically expressed to us that they want to basically, long-term hodl in this and that. And what's really exciting there is just having someone in our corner that really believes in the project in like a really substantial way. I think that when I talk to people, even way before we did anything with Harmony, and I would ask them like, hey, what is Harmony? They'd go like, it's the hottest L1 right now, So we're one of 2 infrastructure projects. We're the highest funded infrastructure project by 4 times. But what's really exciting is, we're like, it's just really exciting to go ahead and be working with those people. I met the CEO, I met the president out at East Denver. Those guys are so unbelievably humble. I actually met the president, right, of Harmony, and I was like, oh, like, and I was just talking to him. I was like, oh, what do you do at Harmony? He's like, oh, I work on the business side, right? Turns out the guy's the president of the company, and it's like, and they have like a $2 billion market cap or something. It's just like crazy. It's like, It's like they're just so unbelievably humble, so unbelievably like high integrity, and like I get that vibe from them, and we're just really excited about like being in their ecosystem. I think that like Harmony is the future.
Yeah, those are some really solid partnerships. I mean, personally, I'm also a fan of Teller over Chainlink or anything else for that matter. I personally like Teller, and I also like what API 3 are doing. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but API 3 is pretty interesting as well. I found them to be quite.
I think I've heard of API 3.
Yeah. So these 2.
Cool name.
Yeah, it's a pretty awesome name, and So for me, Teller and API 3 are like I feel. They're the truly decentralized, oracles, and in the crypto space. But yeah, Chainlink is kind of like the rock star, I would say, of this entire market. And Harmony, I'm very familiar with them. Really like the project. I think they're really cool. I know Zilliqa was the first one that introduced sharding, if I'm not mistaken, though. But yeah, I think Harmony, what they're doing is absolutely phenomenal, and I think having a partnership with with them should be really, really interesting for all of you. Which also brings me to my second question. Like, are you like, when are you guys planning to do like a ID? Are you doing an IDO or an IPO or something, or any of that thing? Like,
We're exploring a couple different options. I don't talk too much about that, but what's really exciting is that we have about 4 or 5 options on the table. Serious offers from different folks that are definitely names that anyone would be familiar with that's listening to this. They're really exciting. Yeah, again, it's all for me. It's all about managing expectations. I don't want to say something and then put my foot in my mouth later. So, like, unless there's a contract signed or money in an account, like, I usually don't say anything about anything. But yeah, no, we're really excited about we've got about 4 or 5 partnership irons in the fire as well. So we're really
right.
excited about that stuff.
Right. So anybody watching this is probably going to ask me, and I know this for a fact, they're like, hey man, really cool project. Where can I buy this? Because I know a lot of people, probably there are going to be some that are not going to listen to the whole thing and they're just like, where do I buy this? So right now, the tokens are not for sale, right? They're not
That's a
for
good,
sale.
yeah, not for sale. Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good problem to have though.
Yeah.
That's how I like to look at it. And the thing is, we want to let the beat build a little bit. I think excess demand never hurt anyone, and
Yeah.
and honestly, like, we're really, and here's the thing with like the Ox 51 community, real quick, just give them a quick shout out.
Yeah,
What's really
absolutely.
exciting, what's really exciting is, like, we had this group of believers really early on in our project that supported us, and have really helped us, get to where we want to be. We never would have been able to afford to go to ETH Denver if it wasn't for them and have made that connection with Harmony in the first place. So super big shout out to Ox 51. Love those guys to death, and you as well. And
Thank you.
yeah, and really grateful for that, because the thing is, like, what's crazy is, like, back in December, it's like we were like kind of like on top of our soapbox, like shouting to the world, like, yo, Morpher tokens are for sale. You know what I mean? At like a certain point, for about 2 weeks. So the thing is, we're really happy for that support. We're really grateful for it, and we wanted to be here without any of that support. So, we hope we'll be long partners.
Yeah, absolutely. Those guys are absolutely fine, fantastic, it's kind of awesome to see projects like yours flourish into what they're becoming, and it's really great. I'm glad to see that the crypto space has some seriously legit projects that are doing amazing things, man. And yours is one of them for sure. I'm a huge fan, actually.
Thanks, I appreciate it, man. I'm a huge fan of this, the DeFi enthusiast as well.
Oh, thank you,
This show and Ox 51. So again, never would have been able to make it here without your support. So yeah, I really am grateful, man.
Thank you so much. So moving forward, I think do we have a little bit more time for a few more questions, I guess?
Yeah. I'm actually free until I'm free for another little bit. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I won't take too much of your time, because I think we've
No.
covered we've covered most of it, right? So
We should have a follow. You know what we should do is we should have a follow-up call when we talk more about, like, the next partnerships in a few months or something.
absolutely, man. I'd love
We'll have a lot
to.
more.
I'd love to. Yeah, when there's more momentum, please do get in touch, and we're going to touch base at that point as well. But so I think one of my last questions to you would be, what are like, if you can talk about anything, what are the future plans for Morphware, and and you're the CEO of this company, right? So how do you, if you can talk about this, obviously you don't have to, but because a lot of times people ask, these sort of things. So that's why I'm asking, what is exactly your marketing strategy? Like how are you going to go about this? And how are you going to promote this further? And what are the future plans for Morpher? Like, where do you see this in the next, let's say, 2 years or 3 years? If you can talk about that.
2 years or 3 years, I definitely want to be on, I mean, I've said this before, I don't shy away from it. I want to be on Coinbase. That's the goal. That's the goal. It's just laser focused on that. Big fan of FTX, big fan of Binance, but I think Coinbase is a little bit Shangri-La. When it comes to you know, when it comes to like our plans aside from that, if you will, just kind of with regards to like size of the network, a lot of that's like pretty dynamic. What we would love to do, and there's no promise here at all, but what we would love to do is to get a couple of supercomputing centers online, potentially at like the university level and beyond, like research level institutions, private enterprises, things like that. We'd be really excited about that possibility. We'd be really excited about the possibility to work with a firm like Consensus. Those folks are really exciting. And
Wow.
we'd be really excited to work with a fund like something with kind of like the notoriety of Coin Fund. Like those are just all dreams. So, hopefully they'll come to fruition, but we'll see. When it comes to basically our marketing plan, what's really exciting is we're wrapped right now. We've been setting a lot of the groundwork. It's really exciting to work with like professionals in the marketing space. These guys Market Across have been like kind of low-key like setting the foundation for us to like really have like a really firm launch pad to like go ahead and like spring off of, if you will. And like what's really exciting here is Market Across reps like Polygon, Crypto.com. They've represented Binance, Consensus. You can just go on their website to their client list, and then like little old Morpher, right? So I think what's really exciting there is they're very selective about who they work with. They've been really setting like the foundation for a lot of like press coverage and all that stuff, and like letting people know about what we're doing. We're gonna have some news coming out about like the Harmony release, or the Harmony news. So really excited about that sort of stuff. And they're very methodical. It's really exciting to see like these guys work. Those conversations are, we talk to them every day about like different things we're working on and like how we're basically positioning ourselves, and how we're thinking very critically about like our market approach, and kind of like their partners and stuff. I actually just got a message from them right now, so I'll probably be talking to them right after this call, but really exciting folks. They're real professionals in the media space. They completely understand. I'm just learning so much from them. Like they understand the crypto PR game. Like I feel like no one else, and it's exciting. I mean, like I was actually talking to someone recently at this prominent fund, and they're like, oh yeah, Market Across, and it was so gratifying to hear that, because I was like, okay, great. It's somewhat validating, to be on their client roster. So yeah, that's what we have on there. Really excited about those like dream type scenarios. We'll see if we can make them happen. But yeah, like it'd be really cool to see some of that come to fruition.
Awesome. Awesome. Yes, it all sounds really exciting, man. And I can only give you my best wishes, and I hope everything that you're dreaming of, comes out to be true, because the crypto space is exciting and innovative, but there are very few people that have the passion and sincerity behind what they do. And I feel Morphware is one of those companies that I feel has both of those things. So all of my best wishes to you, and let's catch up when there are more updates. And would you like to say anything to the viewers before we end this? Anything at all?
I'd say thanks for watching. Stay tuned.
Awesome. Awesome. So guys, this is me, the DeFi enthusiast, and Kenzo Trebing from Morphware. He's the CEO. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, my friend. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. And thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
Talk soon.
Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.